No shit, there I was. I woke up this morning, and much like every other red-blooded American, yes, I'm back on social media, by the way.
He's back.
I blame Rob. Make me a co-host. I got to get back in.
And we haven't even dropped the episode yet of where you talked about that you were off and why. So
yeah, well, thanks. So anyway, no shit, there I was.
It was a quick turnaround.
I woke up this morning, and every other red-blooded American, you roll over and you look at your social media. I've been working really hard not to do that. So, but I just happened to see that I have those Facebook memories. So those Facebook memories are a blessing and a curse. Concur?
Concurred.
yeah,
Concur, yeah. So gives us a good opportunity to go back and untag ourselves from posts and delete things that look really dumb. So, you know, I've taken that opportunity and every day that I remember. But I just happened to run across something that, you know, I thought I was being cute when I made a Facebook post to the world about how I think it was like 7 years ago, 2017. I was
18 if it was 7 years ago.
Okay, so 8 years ago. Don't math me. Okay.
No, 7 years ago it would have been 2018. Was it 17? That would have been.
It was
8 years ago.
17.
Didn't even know what year the Facebook.
It was 17. It was 17 because I deployed 18. So
Yeah.
8 years ago. Look at the memories, and I said, oh, you know, today is like this, and I've been blessed by being selected for the Security Force Assistance Brigade. Just happened to coincide with the conversation that we had yesterday. It's like, hey, let's talk about the SFAB. I just thought that was.
So when you got that notification, what did you think? I mean, did you even know what the hell it was at that point?
No. And what I saw was an opportunity. And when you get to, you know, Master Sergeant, when you get to Master Sergeant, Sergeant Major, and then anything above that, the 6, 7, 8, you know, Sierra Charlie, you don't have as much control over your career. Okay. You're not going to re-enlist for duty station or anything. It's, you know, the branch is going to tell you where you're going. And the sergeants major are run separately, and then even at the nominative level and command level. So I was in the academy. I knew where I was going. I'd already had a touch point with the organization I was going to. I was going to stay there at Bliss. And shout out Stevie Jones, who used to be Ops Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major, back to Ops Sergeant Major, probably Command Sergeant Major for 3-1 Cav.
Yeah.
I just ran into him, by the way.
My man did a ping pong.
Yeah.
Ops to command. It was a different time.
He's the poster child for resiliency.
That's it.
So he actually got the Command Sergeant Major slot over at Bliss, and he just happened to be the CSM that I was going to go serve for as the Ops Sergeant Major. So stopped in to say what's up. He was super happy to see me. As we're progressing through the Sergeant's Major Academy, one of my buddies, I overhear him talk. Actually, I think he approached me. He said, Jay, you hear about this SFAB? No, man, what's that? So he kind of gives me the 10-cent description of what the SFAB is, which is, you know, an advisory role, much like a MIT, right?
Okay, so I was gonna ask
Explain what a MIT is.
the predecessor.
So,
Training team, what is it?
Yeah.
Military intelligence training team, something like that?
So the inception of advising isn't new.
No.
So the United States has been advising since the 1800s. I mean, we've been doing advising missions all the way back to the insurrection in the Philippines, and then you just, you know, move it forward. And we've always had some sort of, capacity for advising. MACV is a good example, right? I mean, those are the old school legacy advisors. So as you move forward into, you know, the 20th century, you get past Desert Storm, and we're looking at advising because we're in this asymmetric warfare, and we're trying to get foreign security forces and foreign security elements to train and do logistics and do all these things like a conventional army should. And when I say should, I use air quotes, and that's, the way that we do it, as we always try to improve ourselves as well. So it's, building the plane as it flies. But how we were doing it was pulling leaders out of organic units and then lowering their head count in order to create these MITs, or to create, advising teams to go out and do, the Lord's work for advising. But now you're short people within this organization. So now your BCTs are being shorted for that. So General Milley, I believe, and people can fact check me on this, I'm just going off of memory from 8 years ago. So we know that my memory's bad anyway.
There we go.
So from 8 years ago, General Milley decides that the United States Army, the military, needs a core advising unit that's purely organic as a brigade element and functions on its own. So no more pulling from other BCTs. And I'll get into this story in a minute. So he kind of lays it down for me, and he said, it's only going to be senior NCOs mostly, and, post KD, post command officers, and it's just going to be a smaller organization. Don't know what the mission set is, but this is what they're looking like. And they're talking about giving us a beret. And that, it was like, us, man, are you already in? He's like, well, he had the connection. I mean, he deserved to have the connection, though. He had the pedigree and the resume for it. So what I knew at that point is that it was going to resemble by title a normal maneuver brigade. So you're going to have your reconnaissance, you're going to have your infantry, you'll have your support. The numbers are different, and I won't get into task org as far as the specific numbers go, but just know that it was going to be smaller. And the reconnaissance thing really got to me. Being a Cav Scout and having been, a master gunner, thought it'd be kind of sexy to do it. So I went ahead and called Sergeant Major Branch and was like, hey, I'm going to put my name in the hat for this. Because then it started to come out officially through the channels, through the NCO Academy. So I went ahead and called them up and put it in, and, they had to do a background check, and they had to do, it was almost an assessment and selection through, documentation at that point. And today, 8 years ago, is when I found out that I was actually selected. So part of the selection process was the selected at that time commander and command sergeant major. So that would have been then Colonel Jackson, who, just retired, but General Jackson retired. I think he retired as a major general. And then Command Sergeant Major Chris Gunn, and he's retired as well. So two very competent, very high-speed individuals got to select who they wanted within this organization. And they were going to start at the top and just kind of work their way down and start, forming this organization. So, the premise of it was to get, you're going to have your core advisors, you'll have your platoons with the core advisors that are typically combat arms, but there's also a heavy reliance on logistical education for the foreign security forces that we're going to go out and talk to. So that was a big difference. Is we're going to talk logistics, we're going to talk supply, we're going to talk about how to manage all these things, and we can use us as an example. It's not the right way, it's just a way, and it's definitely more than what, our counterparts or the foreign security forces that we work with had at the time. So anybody in the Army knows, anybody that's deployed knows that the logistics from the people that we work with is pretty non-existent, right?
I was sitting here thinking, like, logistics, the term for the ones that we are training, is it even a relevant term to bring up more so than, like, because what would they do? What does Joe do in a supply room? He has no
he's stuffing pockets.
He has no supply discipline. Yeah. But now, on the other hand, in the other place, we have Joe all the way up to whatever that's stuffing pockets. Yeah. And it's not chem lights, it's cash. It's, there's all that. That's the that's part of the mission. I'm sure it's in there somewhere of navigating culture when it comes to ownership and who owns what. Is it yours just because you have it in your hands, or is it somebody else's and you're borrowing it and you signed for it?
And I think, you know what, and now that you bring that up, I think it would be awesome to bring on a logistician that's either in or had served in the SFAB. I would love to bring on somebody that, you know, was a plank holder with me back in 2017, 18, 19, that actually went down, you know, to Dalkey with us to talk about, you know, what it looked like when they were working with the Afghan National Army and what logistics, because I remember hearing the horror stories. But then I also remember hearing the success stories after the fact, right? Where, you know, they looked like this and you just had a whole bunch of people licking windows and stealing stuff and taking the money from the top. And then all of a sudden they had, you know, a supply discipline program. And, you know, the Afghan National Army actually has a supply NCO or representative that's in there smacking people, telling them to get away. I thought that was absolutely incredible. So, I just, here, let me put this up. So I saw an opportunity to go all the way back. Why did I do it? Because opportunities like this don't come up for people like First Sergeants, you know, command. You got to run with it. And I also saw another opportunity to deploy, because at that point, you know, we're still deploying-ish. Are we going over to Europe? Are we, you know, we're kind of doing some weird hokey things. They're like the Fisher-Price My First Deployments. They're not really anything crazy.
Yeah.
But this SFAB thing, I'm like, yeah, let me get up on that, because then you have an opportunity to also create your own legacy, right? Now, I'm not trying to sound like, you know, it's conceited or anything, but anybody that starts off with any new endeavor, starts something from the ground up, you get to create the legacy of that program, good or bad.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So it's just a chance that you have to take.
So let's go into, you know, you mentioned General Milley. I think there was some controversy that came up over really three things, I guess. One was at that time frame, there were a lot of Special Forces guys that, like you had mentioned, other units, but Special Forces were engaged heavily in being advisors at that time period. They needed more door kickers, I think, at that time frame, and that may be part of the move that they wanted to do that. The second thing was, like you had mentioned, he wanted a different color beret than the black beret that was being worn at that time frame, and the maroon and the green and the tan. So it was a question of what color am I going to select, and that got really ugly. Yeah. And then third thing was he decided to stick a flash on it that resembled a lot of what 5th Special Forces Group looks like.
Yeah,
and used the motto.
Yeah.
So
Legion, thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't know what I was getting myself into from that perspective. So from that lens, I had no clue.
Sure.
What I saw was an opportunity. What we that initial group that came in, got thrown into was a bunch of controversy. So, you know, imagine a unit, and I'll get more into this, but when I showed up to First SFAB, we fell into Third ID's legacy footprint.
Yeah.
Overgrown, Zombieville, you know, we're in and we're trying to get things repainted. I mean, our conference room, at one point, all the battalions were co-located within the brigade headquarters building because it was just easier. No reason to occupy with 3.5 people. And we're doing all of our planning as we receive all these new people coming in. We're doing all of our planning on like a bulletin board taken off the wall, set on top of an MRE box. You know what I mean? Brigade commander, and everybody's thinking, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how we started, humble beginnings. So
yeah, if you went out to Fort Benning during that time frame, it was basically tumbleweeds running through the buildings.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
The parking lot.
Yeah, if you go past,
it was dead.
Yeah, the not the shopette, but the PX there, and went up Kelly Hill. It
was scary.
Yeah,
it was
like Knappenberger Field was overgrown.
Yeah,
it was bad.
A little of the Walking Dead vibe.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, it was
and there were signs on the doors, you know, you're being watched, cameras and all that.
Well, nobody being watched.
No.
Fun fact, no cameras on those buildings. Sorry, First SFAB.
Yeah.
They were being watched by patrols, but that was, you know. So, yeah, so let me back up. So I got a funny story for you, and I cannot substantiate if this is true, but it came from a good source, and it's funny nonetheless. So I'll go ahead and talk about the inception of the color of the beret, round 1, version 1. So no shit, there they were, General Milley, everybody else, and they're coming up with this SFAB idea. So there's a scaffolding around it. Everybody knows what they want it to look like. They've already built the scaffolding. Now we're just slapping things onto it, trying to figure out what fits, what works. So supposedly the conversation for the Green Beret was everybody's sitting around, and obviously it's official. They've got slides up, and they're trying to figure out what we want to look like, we as an organization, what color the beret should be and why. And so one of the choices was kind of going off of the British Army. They had a type of green that was, different than Special Forces and probably a little more muted.
Was it the Marines, Royal Marines? I think so, because they have possibly that color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you looked at the picture, like I got to see the picture of the person that they were kind of going, yeah, that's it. They hadn't gotten to that point yet, but they were just talking about the headgear at that point. But I saw the picture of the guy that they were trying to, the guy looked wicked. I was like, oh yeah, if everybody in the SFAB looked like that, yes. Fortunately, that's not the case, but it would have been great, right? So they're all sitting there, and I'll dumb down the story. It's just like they get down to the color, and General Milley goes, this color, and he's pointing at his uniform, this color green. This is what I was thinking about. Like, all right, sir, yeah, roger that. So meeting adjourned, slap the table, and everybody leaves, and you got the group of planners around. Hey, what was he pointing at? Which color?
His tab or his...
Yeah, we don't know which color he was pointing. So you could take that for what it's worth, whether it's true or not, but it kind of, sets the conditions for the direction that we were going. Mind you, because it did have the chief of staff, behind it, we got everything we needed. And that was a blessing. But it also came with a price. And that price was whatever ideas that he had that got refined below him and then passed down. And it was pretty direct to us. We talk about ground to plate and, no preservatives. We were getting it pretty tough, which I appreciated. And but the ideas weren't raw. It's almost regurgitated, right? So the Special Forces, I understand the concept. Make the SFAB special. We need to make them an entity within a conventional army that goes off and does special things like advising. You think about civil affairs, you think about cyber, you think, right? Make it a little more special than what conventional is. We want to make it sexy. We want the job, the outcome, all of it. It needs to be a little bit more than just close with and destroy the enemy. If you look at any of the documentations, they talk about being able to, and I'm going to use non-military terminology, do everything from peacekeeping to conflict and everything in between. And that this organization, as small as it is, should be able to inhale a group of younger soldiers and become its own brigade combat team and then we can go in and close with, destroy the enemy. But up to that point, we're going to continue to advise, right? So for all of our operators out there, ODA, Green Beret folks, or even the Rangers that have worked with Green Beret, it sounds very familiar. Sounds like a line of operation that the SF already does. And it's true. The difference is that what we were trying to do was go in and take some of that advising burden off of their plate, let them focus on the Special Forces aspect of it, right? They can work with the commandos and the special operations with the foreign security forces, and we can work with the conventional. And then somewhere we are creating this crosswalk to where their conventional army is talking to their special operations forces, and there's some handover there. It's not just alone and unafraid going out there smashing in houses. Nobody knows what's going on. And then the conventional force out there on roadblocks and checkpoints are getting jacked up because something over here happened, right? There needs to be some communication. So as we're building this organization, that's kind of what's being told us. It's like we're trying to take some of that off their plate and then create some some communications conduits there. The Green Beret is not where it's at, though, right? So they make a decision on the Green Beret. I'm not a color scientist. I can't tell you the number, the RGB, nothing. All I know is it's a little more muted green. In my professional opinion, it looks like a faded Special Forces beret, right?
Yeah.
So that thing comes out, the flash comes out, and then the patch comes out. And the patch, the old patch was an arrowhead. I'm looking around because I used to have a picture of it. It was an arrowhead, right, a triangle, with a sword in the middle. Sound familiar? And then above it, the original one was Combat Advisor, right? Shit hit the fan.
I mean, everything looks like Special Forces.
Well, even Combat Advisor is a long tab.
Yeah, right. A very long tab.
Right.
So you take that, and then you couple that with General Milley having been, 5th Group Commander at one point, and then they give us the name Legion, which is right off of 5th Special Forces. I mean, as a recipe for disaster. Mind you, there are conventional units in the United States Army with the name Legion, but they also don't wear green berets, and they don't have a patch that resembles, a sword. And so here's how this happens, right? So we get issued this stuff by supply. I mean, we're still filling out forms and having to sign for it. And we get the flash, we get the beret, we're going to take it home, and the majority of everybody is looking at this thing going, this ain't it. This is not going to go over well at all. It's a different color. It really, really is.
But it's close enough to a faded green beret.
Yeah, it's like wearing Nikes or Sykes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we had a couple people shape it, get the flash thing on, the DUIs on, and then they post it on social media. No fault of their own. No, there's nothing out there that says that we're not allowed to do that, right? It's that probably should have been, but hindsight, right? So it gets out there, and the kid that put it out there was actually my commo NCO, amazing commo NCO, by the way, and he got ripped apart.
So I'm going to tell you, I was on this side. We had the podcast that's been around for 10 years. This whole thing comes out. I feel the tension out there because they're pissed. I mean, I didn't hear that from the command. Let me clarify.
You could feel it.
I can feel it from those active duty soldiers, and especially those who either served in 5th Special Forces Group or were serving in 5th Special Forces Group, because they felt like this was all just General Milley making decisions based on him being, I mean, even Security Forces, SF, everything.
I'm rolling my eyes, I know.
So yeah, this was a painful time period, and there were memes and jokes galore.
Oh yeah, my soldier was like the center of the initial memes. But to the defense of the active duty, the serving special forces, the operators, they were actually pretty chill. I got to give it to them. It was the SF dudes that were in. They were great. They really were. I mean, they were talking through their teeth a little bit, but they were professional enough to accept us. And I say that because we went through a combat advising training course, like an impromptu. Everybody had to go through it, right? It just everything that you can think of was in it, and we had SF people in there helping us through this course. So
5th Special Forces Group?
We didn't ask because it was a touchy subject. But we had either former or current. We had, and they were helping us through. And that's tough to do. I mean, I can only imagine being part of a prestigious organization that's done so many things that most people will never even be able to fathom the amount of stuff that they go through. And then to suck it all in and come to this new organization. Because they probably got chastised.
Well, you guys were just like you said. You were issued a beret, you were issued a flash, you were issued everything. Yeah. You were assigned orders of what unit you're going to be assigned to, but you guys are getting beat up because of the other noise that was there that was created.
Yeah.
And it's kind of unfortunate for you. So I'm sure some of these soldiers recognize that fact and go, man, hey, these guys are just trying to do their job.
Yeah.
And this is going to live on. We're 8 years later now. It's calmed down.
It's calmed down a lot. And the naysayers now are more so probably more seasoned
legacy dudes,
or, you know, you've got some people that understand what SFAB's doing now, and I won't get into that. And they look at the mission set and they're like, it's probably not going to stick around. I mean, a lot of people didn't think the SFAB would be around as long as it has been. They thought it was going to be, you know, a flash in the pan. First SFAB's going to go to Afghanistan. People are going to see that, you know, it costs too much money, logistical footprint's too big for an organization that small. But I mean, you name it, but you're going to have a lot of people going, it's not going to be around very much longer. And so here we are, year 8, year 9. And not only did it not go away, but they added 4 more brigades. They added a command element to it at a division level. We're regionally, I say we, right? We're regionally aligned to, you know, the other COCOMs. So yeah, maybe it'll go away. I mean, Cap Scouts can go away at any minute. Infantry will never go away. But you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the Kiowa was
Right.
E-10 went away. I think it's back. Anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
I heard it's back. Is it back?
The 11 hotel went away?
I think actually the aircraft, I think you're right. Actually, I think the aircraft that they were going to replace the A-10 for just did not live up to the expectations of what the A-10.
Man, who's going to try to follow the A-10?
I wouldn't want to do that.
It's like going on after Elvis. You just don't want to do it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
But it makes
So anyway.
so it did make sense in the time frame. The questions are probably still going to be out there as to the next war. Will we need those advisors and all of that? We don't know.
Well, so that goes back to what I was telling you, is that now you can fill the SFAB with sergeants and below.
Because it has an ease set. Literally every platoon sergeant is in place.
I mean, there are sergeants, there are staff sergeants, but they're in an enabling position, right? So their role, not lesser, but it's just different than the core advising role.
Humbling from the staff sergeants that I heard that went there as enablers, like, we became Joe again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I was a sergeant major mowing grass.
Yeah.
I mean, we all became Joe again because you just didn't, the resources aren't there. You know what I mean? A normal brigade has got, division's got, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 25K. Brigade's got, like 5K, somewhere around there. We had less than 1,000, right? And that's across the entire brigade. So, you know, Army things still have to happen. Budget constraints are there. That lawn mowing contract is only for once a month, but says the sergeant major.
So in the early days, when you guys started standing this up, I mean, the tension started getting less and less, and you guys
not really.
No.
So it just wasn't talked about. So I'll give you an example. The beret comes out, the memes, blah 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 blah, and now we're SFabulous, right? Everything under the sun is just making fun of the SFAB. So they get rid of the beret. They're like, all right, everybody give us back the beret. We're gonna change the patch too. So give us that shit back too. So we're handing all this stuff back, and we're walking around slick sleeve. You know, the only thing I got on is a combat patch, and this side has got nothing, and we're wearing PCs. So all Kelly Hill, PCs, no unit patch, and we go to JRTC like that. So there we are in JRTC doing these different lanes, right? We're creating what a rotation should look like for an SFAB organization, and I think it went really well. I mean, we deployed well. That's where we found out we were getting deployed. Generally speaking, the morale was pretty high. I mean, it was just new for everybody. I mean, we've all been to most people have been JRTC, but to go there in this capacity was pretty cool. I remember during a break, everybody rushes to the PX, during the off time. And I had some young NCO came up to me, God bless him, and he's like, Sergeant Major, you're missing your patch. It's like, Thank you. You can move out smartly. I appreciate it. Because I was tired. Yeah, I was tired of explaining to everybody. But you know, I wasn't going to say anything to him, and he did the right thing.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of thing. But see, that then resonates. Oh, SFAB was a JRTC with no patches. This sergeant major was all ate up because he didn't have his patch on. Well, no, we didn't have one. So
how long did that go on?
You know what? I'll lie to you. I don't remember when we actually got the official pay. In fact, that's not even the right one. The tab is supposed to be a little bit longer, but they finally took combat advisor down to advisor, kept the sword. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kept the sword. But I don't even want to lie to you about all the stars and the colors.
You guys changed the beret to the brown beret, kind of a brown.
Yeah, so we went doo-doo brown with the beret. That was cool.
That was the color next to the one he was.
Yeah. This is not factual. No, I meant the brown. Fuck's y'all's problem. I said the brown. Roger, sir. So yeah, we get the brown beret, and I guess it's easier to have a whole bunch of boo-boo faced, less than 1,000 boo-boo faced advisors than it is all of the Special Forces organization, past and present.
It blended in with your skin tone very well.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
I mean, run the frowny brownie and make it your own thing.
You know what I mean? Yeah, there was how many times I've been asked if, you know, hey, did they get the sash so you could put your merit badges on?
Yeah.
You know, I will say what's still funny, or it's just me probably, but maybe not, is that every time, even to this day, I see somebody SFAB and with that brown beret, I automatically go to see, do they have jump wings? And it's just not a beret I associate with being leg. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there was a big conversation about that.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, the conversation was, you know, go through Cat C. Hey, why aren't we an airborne unit, right? And then, you know, without getting into too much detail, it just said, it's not necessary.
Well, look at now, 20,000 people basically are notified that you're not in jump status.
Yeah. Right. But yeah.
Yeah, you haven't heard that?
No.
So this happened about 3 months ago, I guess it was. The Army decided that, you know, they're going through restructuring like the Army does all the time, and they started realizing that, you know, you've got a lot of people, especially in enabler type roles, that are clogging up aircraft and jump slots and everything. And so what they decided is, you know what, we're going to pull you jump status. You don't really need the jump once a quarter, and you don't need to get paid to do so. Yeah. And so they started pulling, I think it's 20,000. But it begs the question, and I don't want to take this down too far a rabbit hole because we could do another episode on this, but it begs the question, and we asked about this offline, is, when was the last time we really did a combat jump? And
that's going to open up a whole...
I know. And so it...
Don't.
I know.
Don't. Because it is needed because it is needed.
I know.
That's why.
It's close to your heart.
That's why. It's because we do it better than anybody else in the world, and fuck them because they can't do it as good as us.
And so
that's why we do it.
There are questions now about...
Why don't we just stop shooting tank gunners?
Well, no. So, yeah.
Yeah, why don't we just take the Bradley and just go park that shit?
Well, they may end up doing that. Yeah. So I mean, the scouts actually may end up going away because of the dogs and the drones and everything else that's going on. I mean, the Marine Corps has created.
I'd like to see a German Shepherd do a fucking route reconnaissance.
No, this is
do a report.
It's the electronic dogs. It's the robot.
Whatever.
So fuck that. I pushed the trigger for sure.
Hey, rough motherfucker, go to the radius of a curve.
Yeah.
But not only that, but I mean, I think it starts bringing into question, and this is going to be a pain point for some people and a trigger point as well, is that
we're trying to
air assault. I know. I don't want to take us off track here too much, but air assault might have more of a role in the future than airborne operations.
I can jump on my parachute out of a UH-60. They can't do what I do out of a C-130.
I mean, they're just not going to survive.
They're just not. They're just hold on to the rope and stop it.
I'm just saying, hang tight, because I'm sure Rand is probably doing a study on all of this right now, and the Army's evaluating it. Yeah. Who knows what's going to come? But if they've already drawn and taken 20,000 slots, jump status away, then there's more to come on this.
To bring it back so we can get the color back to your
There you
face.
go.
To bring it back to
Heated.
the SFAB, the conversation was there, you know, how come we can't be an airborne unit? And just without getting into the details, it was like, when's the last time you're going to jump and advise, right? Type stuff.
Yeah.
You can argue it from a kinetic standpoint. Like if we're doing direct action, maybe it's good to have them and have the option there. You know, maybe. I think we put more emphasis on stuff like Pathfinder and, you know, stuff that we know that we're probably going to use.
Yeah.
Will the pilot ever look at your hand and arm signals? Probably not. Right? Just
no one's going to.
Oh, no, you're going to go that way?
Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll just be here. Whatever, dog.
I'll just be here,
Right?
like, you know, fucking myself with this.
Yeah, I've only been setting up this HLZ since 03. Follow the buzzsaw. Yeah, no, we're going to go over here. Oh, well, you know, fuck me then.
Yeah.
So anyway, airborne.
Right.
So we're more concerned about SEER.
Yeah.
More concerned about, I won't say concerned, more motivated to do things that we thought that we were going to use on a regular basis. So Pathfinder made sense. In fact, the more we were training, the more we realized Pathfinder made a lot of sense.
Did you go Pathfinder?
I didn't.
Oh.
I just got to schedule people for it.
Yeah, I've never seen the torch on the uniform. So.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks. So that ends this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Please mash that subscribe button. No, I didn't get that. No, I'm a Bradley Master Gunner by trade, and so that laid the foundation for what was supposed to be my Master Gunner career. And I think in my original discussion with you guys, it was Master Gunner. Hey, let me go to this Bradley organization of some sort, some Div Cav. Let's get sexy with the 25. They're like, yeah, that sounds good. Why don't you go to 10th Mountain Division? So anyway.
So maybe we get into why is it important? And then after that, what about people that are interested in going into it? So what's the entry point now?
Well, I'm going to back it up even a little bit more and talk about some of the friction points that we ran into outside of special operations. So yes, that pissed them off from, you know, the gear and the weight, you know, the appearance. Yeah, the appearance. There we go. I'm getting old, man.
Just like you triggered him on airborne. So
yeah, fuck airborne.
Hey, man.
Whoa.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
He wears his airborne wings underneath his polos.
I do.
He's got a tattoo, right?
Yeah. Right by the nipple.
Certainly not.
Lost my train of thought. So we started making conventional units upset, more so sergeants majors, because the goal was to not pull people from their organizations. That's the long-term goal. But in the short term, you have to fill this organization. And in order to do that, we do in-service recruiting. So we're not picking people up straight out. There's no 18 X-ray program or, you know, Ranger pro. It is like you can put in an application. We'll put you through an assessment and selection. You'll get, you know, interviewed by the organization that you most likely will go to. And then that sergeant major will make the decision on whether or not you're coming to that organization. But that entails pulling them from whatever organization that they're in. And so robbing Peter to pay Paul from the initial onset. And that was a conversation is, hey, General Milley said that we're doing this so we don't pull people from organizations, and then we turn around and we're pulling people from organizations. And so I'd have to go around, because after I left as Brigade Operations Sergeant Major, I ended up as the SFAC recruiting Sergeant Major, and I learned all about the manning cycle and trying to do in-service recruiting and constantly bring people in, right? It's a never-ending endeavor. And it pisses sergeants majors off from division level on down, probably at the corps level, but division on down. I mean, just conversations that I would have to have with divisions CSMs about how what we were doing to bring people into this, you know, great organization was going to pay dividends. Because what we envision, and we is the whole organization is you bring in somebody that's high speed, right? The thought process is bring in somebody that's already been qualified in the position that you're bringing them in for. So, you know, commanders or post-command commanders that we're typically bringing in, sergeants majors for the battalions or the squadron are, you know, second time squadron or battalion sergeants majors. Because we're going to turn around and we're hoping they get promoted within, or they move up to the next, you know, 7 Sierra 7 Charlie level as a sergeant major, and we're giving them back to the force within a couple of years. So while I am pulling now, I'm building a bench, and we're trying to bring you somebody that has a super solid understanding of what it is to teach and mentor through advising.
Wait, is it considered a broadening assignment?
No.
Why wouldn't it be?
It's actually a great question.
That's
because I used to know the answer to this, and I apologize for not, but I'm just going to assume. I believe it was because you're still going to your MOS specific duty within that organization. So if you're a logistician, you are now an enabler within the SFAB organization as a logistician. The mission set doesn't change. At the base level, you're still doing logistics. You just may have sexier equipment, and it may just be a little more, you know, isolated on what your mission set.
Maybe not the enablers, but the advisors themselves.
Same. I mean, as a 19 Delta, I would go to 3rd Squadron, 1st SFAB, the reconnaissance squadron. As an 11 Bravo, I would go to 1st or 2nd, right? So at the time, it wasn't considered a broadening assignment. It was just your next.
But it's like an ARC instructor or a Cav leader course instructor a broadening assignment?
I mean, instructor is a broadening assignment.
So I'm going to understand, why isn't it advisor?
Right. Why isn't the advisor? So when you think of it, no, we're not going to change the whole way the Army's thinking.
Yeah.
But in order to win the hearts and minds, and not get people upset at leadership commands, that's how you do it. Now you create a way in which you now see the vision of an opportunity for somebody to go learn advisement, you know, in an advisory role, a skill set that could be used in other capacities. He's got a capability and stuff he brings back to my unit now. And then maybe he even mentors individuals who want that same type of assignment when they come up. Now you get something that makes sense rather than everybody fighting for the same resources. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
If you're listening to SFAB, you may...
Maybe they wouldn't.
Well, so at the time, we're pulling from organizations. What we're trying to do is start utilizing the manning cycle so it becomes the next duty station, and I'm not pulling from organizations, right?
But you're still technically, because maybe they were thinking they were going to get an E6 from Bragg out at, you know, Vincenza, and next thing you know.
So yes. They've changed it with all somebody that works in human resources and S1 capability can check me on this one though. So as I was leaving, they were coming out with the new system, and you can go in and you can choose what you want. And so as a sergeant major, I don't necessarily have the forecasting immediately, because we're waiting for this manning cycle to finish up and everybody put in their preferences, and then the Army makes the determination within that manning cycle, and the decision window is, you know, assessment and selection and doing all this stuff for the SFAB. Oh, you didn't make it? All right. Now you're going to Vincenza. And then as a sergeant major, I'm like, all right, that's who's coming here. I mean, my argument as an individual would be broadening assignment, cool. We were still getting people assigned as drill sergeants and recruiters from the SFAB. I mean, it's needs of the Army, right?
Yeah.
So if we're short on those folks, there's really no difference if you're expecting somebody to show up, but they get sent to drill sergeant instead. I mean, you can only have so many broadening assignments out there before it starts to get absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that could be an argument.
Yeah.
I'm not the person.
Get us back on track.
Yeah, sorry.
You're the one that took me off track, dog.
That's on me.
Yeah. Thanks, Airborne. Fuck. So that conversation happened, you know, and getting people on board wasn't necessarily successful, but it's the way it was going to be, especially for about the first year or two. If a person wanted to go SFAB, they were going to go SFAB. And I helped establish the first assessment and selection. a Fisher Price, My First ANS, right? And they come through, and it's 3 days of checking your fortitude and your thresholds for certain things, and a board, MOS specific stuff. So those things were created by, your commo folks and your Intel folks and your 19 series and 11 series came up with questions that were relevant to what we were doing, and just checking to make sure that they were up to snuff on their MOS proficiency. So all those things were put into account, and then you're boarded. And then as you're boarded, people make the decision, then, you let them know you're part of the organization. That I didn't disagree with. The recruiting at the beginning, I didn't necessarily disagree with, but it was just very archaic, whereas it's almost like a Delta recruiting, right? Where you tell an organization, hey, Benning, I'm going to be in your footprint from here to here. We have the auditorium at this time. Please send me all of these people. And when I say these people, it's not a named list. It's MOSs and pay grades, right?
Yeah, it's like, I understand you have this many staff sergeants.
Yeah. And please send them all.
Yeah.
And then if they weren't, if they weren't getting those folks there, the previous recruiting sergeant major they're at the ForceCom headquarters building. So they just got to go talk to the man upstairs and say, hey, and that was actually part of the report was, how much flack are you getting? How much support are you getting? And then the next call would go to, the division CSM or whoever the powers that be, and say, hey, Mike, got this tick going on. Why didn't you send everybody this brief? So we never wanted to be that way, but I guess that's the way it was. So that's that, big wide net cast, trying to bring in as many people as possible, the old school recruiting method, the normal recruiting method. And then eventually we want to get away from that, and we want to start isolating people by doing some analysis. Hey, we've got, I can look here and say, we need, a 19 Delta 4 Oscar over here. Got it. We've got 3 at Carson. And then we contact Carson and let them know we've got 3 people on the radar. That's what we try to get after. So now we're doing, more strategic pinpoint recruiting. It's tough though. I used to reach out to the SORB, and I'd sit down with their sergeant major, and we'd talk about special operations recruiting.
Yeah.
So we would sit, because I'm at Bragg, I'm in the ForceCom headquarters. I've got all of these resources to help me out. I'm with retention, Army retention or ForceCom retention is right there. So we have access to all the things that we need to make us good, to make in-service recruiting the best we can make it. But it's still difficult because it's in-service recruiting. I do have to bring somebody in, and let's be honest, we're not the first choice for people, right? And we'll start talking about the qualifications and getting people in. Everybody that wants to change what they're doing wants to do SF, right? If you're 11 series, you want to go to the battalion or the regiment, but you don't necessarily want to be a part of the SFAB unless you don't make it into the Special Force through Special Force Assessment Selection, or you don't, right? And then all of a sudden you're choice number 2. I don't want to be that grenade, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the club that you got to jump on for your friend. Like I'm here, like we are relevant. We have some pretty sexy people that do some sexy things on a daily basis. Why don't you come on over and see what we're about? And so that's what you're competing against. Special Forces, SWIC, SOAR, all these different aspects, CIWAR, right? CA. So the goal is to make us a first choice for people. And in order to do that, you need to create buy-in from the leadership to allow folks to come and see us, and then create relevancy within the organization by bringing in the best of the best, not the best of the rest, right? So that's where we're gonna. General Jackson made a comment. He said, not every soldier can make a great advisor, but every advisor will be a great soldier. Something along those lines, right? That resonated with me. But what that tells me is that advising isn't for everybody. You may not be able to speak in front of a group of people. God forbid you got to speak in front of a group of people that don't speak your language, right? So that goes into, being regionally aligned to these COCOMs and going out. If you're dealing with or functioning with a foreign security force on your own with your guardian, and guardian angel would be, we had Task Force 128 with us, and those are, for lack of a better term, your bodyguards, right? As you do your advising mission, if you can't speak and teach in English, hey dog, you're probably not going to be able to do it with the foreign language. And it doesn't matter how many hand and arm signals you got, it's just not going to cut it. So it's not for everybody. That's what we had to try to weed through and get to, right? The issue that we were running into is as people started hearing about the SFAB, and as we start maneuvering away from this wide net cast into, pinpoint and finding folks, we were still getting people that were reaching out to us. They were finding out that they were going to Fort Polk and didn't want to go to Polk. So now all of a sudden they want to be a part of the SFAB. And so we pull up in SRB and we're just like, oh, nope. No, you're licking windows, bro. Yeah. We're not doing that. You literally were licking the chocolate off of Windows in your last duty assignment, and we don't have that need over here. Yeah. Right. So it's just one of those opportunities that presents itself for people that don't want to go to a place that they've been assigned to. Hey, I just got picked up for recruiting duty. I was wondering if I could come over to the SFAB. That's a no for me, dog. Right? And you'd have to break the hearts, right? So,
well, I talked to HRC because I volunteered for drill but got put on recruiting orders. And I said, what about SFAB? And they're like, no.
Yeah. You actually did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody was doing
it. I didn't want to be I don't want to be a recruiter. That's why I'm not.
No, I didn't know this story.
Do I want to wear the Dookie Brown beret or do I want to go recruit? SFAB it is.
SFAB it is. And back to Kelly Hill.
Yeah. And so that's, that, and we were trying to get people away from that. That's why Reese Teakle, Command Sergeant Major, Ranger till the day he dies, just an amazing leader. When you have figureheads like that, General Jackson, when you have figurehead, Chris Gunn, right? When you have figureheads like this, what we're hoping is, well, you're not hoping, you're putting in the best of the best from a leadership standpoint. And then the hope is that they're inhaling their pedigree with them, right? The soldiers that they raise to become amazing leaders, and then kind of like a multi-level marketing, right? We're bringing in our folks. And so if you can establish that, I wasn't cool. I've got a few folks that I mentored that think I'm pretty cool, but my depth and breadth probably isn't as far reaching as some or most, but I was still able to become a recruiter for the SFAB and still bring people in. And I still reached out to my close group of people that, wanted to be a part of the SFAB that tried to make it in.
I think that's the only way for it to grow organically and the people actually like the way it is now, how the friction has calmed down to we're having to bring it up now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, hey, this guy begat this guy begat this guy. Like, I can follow my chain all the way back to this person.
Yeah.
Who helped stand it up.
And nothing changes.
Yeah.
Conventional units. I hate the word conventional. Just, core Army units. It's the same thing, 1 5-year period, 10th Mountain Division is the absolute place to go to. And then next 5-year period, it absolutely sucks. Nobody wants to go there.
Oh my God. When 10th Mountain first came about, it was not the place to go.
No, it's Camp Drum. Nobody wants to go to northern New York.
But now.
Yeah. But it's a place to go to grow, right?
Right.
If you're an infantryman,
right.
If you're not going to end up at the 82nd, you're not the 101, if you're not at 20, you could still go to 10th Mountain. You're going to grow and you're going to succeed.
I didn't get that cool mountaineering.
Sergeant Major Johnson's there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, that's the point is that you put the right people in the right places to make the organization as great or even better than it typically is. And a lot of younger soldiers don't understand that. The Army has a plan, and that plan is to put the right people in the right place. And sometimes your aperture is too narrow to understand why they might put somebody there. Your aperture might be a little bit narrower than it needs to be to understand why the Army put you where you needed to go. And your mind is just like, they hate me. Or maybe you have a specialty skill that's necessary for filling this over here.
I'm still not recruiting. I don't care.
I mean, that I ain't got nothing for that.
Yeah.
My son's a recruiter down in Lakeland, Florida, with the Marines, and he fought tooth and nail to try to get away from that. I mean, he went out MARSOC assessment and selection. He's trying to go back out.
They won't let you go.
No, they let him go.
No, but he's not going anywhere until he fulfills that. Or he either makes it or he fulfills that.
No, he's bringing in some Marines.
Yeah,
you're gonna go to Florida and you're gonna effing like it.
Yeah.
So no, so it's just it's a matter of changing the perception of the organization, and I think that perception was ground into us of not being as high speed as we wanted it to be.
But didn't we already go through this from DivCav to Rista squadrons to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like a BRT.
Yeah,
all that stuff. We did, but it's hard. It's hard to become an individualized special organization when at the heart of you still go off and you can do, training with another organization, and they look at you and you're like, okay, you guys are extra regular just like we are.
Yeah.
You just have a different title. You know, one of the coolest things that I heard when I was in, what do they call it now? We used to call it ANOC. Senior Leader Course.
ALC?
SLC. No, ALC. Right? Advanced Leader Course?
Yeah.
No, it's SLC.
Warrior Leader Course.
It's WAS and then, okay, so I think it's Senior Leader. Anyway, when I went there, it was Maneuver ANOC.
I went through ANOC.
Say that out loud. I'm in Maneuver ANOC, and we had some SMU guys there, and they were pretty cool, and we're having a conversation one night, and the guy said, hey, you know why we have the brown stuff around the fencing and we're so far away from everybody else? I was like, I don't know, you're clandestine, and it's a loaded ass question. He's like, because we're fucked up just like everybody else is. We just don't want you to see it. Obviously, he's joking, but it resonated with me, right? You can pick apart any organization, and it's going to have its flaws, and it's going to. But the point is every organization is trying to better itself, regardless. So they know about their flaws, and they're going to try to fix them, or maybe they're not flaws at all. You just think they are because you're ignorant to what we do as an organization. And that's kind of where the SFAB had to create itself is that, from the jump, our flaws were, oh, you guys trying to be like special forces. When in reality, you've got, a group of high-speed soldiers that were hand-selected to be in this initial organization. They were like, oh, we didn't have any part in this. We saw the mission set, and we saw the opportunity, and that drove us here. I mean, you could have told me that I was going to function in Lederhosen, and I would have gone because the opportunity looked absolutely amazing. I was not running away from Fort Bliss. I was ready to stay at Fort Bliss and do it. I never would have checked in with the unit that I thought I was going to if I thought that I didn't want to be there.
Okay, you've given us the history on SFAB up to the genesis of it and everything.
Yeah.
So now give me an idea of like when you left, why is it somebody wants to go into SFAB, and today why somebody wants to go into SFAB?
I'll tell you, it's an opportunity to check who you are as a leader. So, as a first sergeant, you're over, you're leading. I don't like to say you're in charge, but you are charged with the leadership of a bunch of soldiers who are trying to be who you are. They're trying to emulate who you are. So that's a big responsibility, and it's 24/7. And so your mind is constantly going. As you're doing this, you start to put yourself on a pedestal. And if anybody denies this, they're full of shit. You put yourself there. And whenever you're in a position where another grown person has to stand at a modified position of attention to speak to you and then call you by your name and your rank, come on, man. You know what I mean? Like, I never got off on it. Army traditions, get it. It puts you in a place. It makes you feel a certain type of way about yourself. The SFAB will knock you off that damn pedestal in a heartbeat. Because what ends up happening is you go to an organization where you are no longer charged with the health, welfare, morale training safety of all of these soldiers, you are now part of this small group, this team that relies on you as an individual to do your individual job in order to make the whole better. So if you are the weakest link, your lowest common denominator, that whole team sucks. And now you suck, right? You'll be exposed in a heartbeat. That's what's, for me, is great, because then you get to go and better yourself. You get to gauge the type of person that you are within your CMF. Like, you go in within your MOS and you're like, man, I am all that is Cab Scout. I'm all that is reconnaissance. And then you go in there and you're just like, I am not anything close to reconnaissance. I need to get better, right? You want to know about reconnaissance, you want to be better, go to Cav Leaders course. That'll knock you off your horse in a heartbeat, right? If you think that you're good with reconnaissance and security, go to RSLIC. That'll humble you real quick. You go to these specialized courses that force you to live within your MOS and within your skill set, and you'll get exposed quickly because you think you're better than you are, and people respect me, and then all of a sudden you show up and you're just like, you just step my game up. I had that same feeling when I went to the Sergeant's Major Academy, and I believe all of us did. You go in and everybody's a little bit nervous. First day of school, it's kind of humbling. So the SFAB reinvigorated me to be better. It got me doing things that I wasn't accustomed to doing, and it challenged me, and it fed my ADHD. So for the younger soldiers now, if you're looking for a challenge, go to the SFAB, and I mean challenge in a good way. I'm not even talking about assessment selection. If you're going to make it past that, that is, I won't even call it a hurdle. It's a necessity. People need to know that you're the right person for that position. And I'm not even talking about CAT-C, which CAT-C is the Combat Advisor Training Course that falls under the Military Advising Training Academy, that falls under 316 Cav at Benning. You go to CAT-C, and from what I hear, the new CAT-C is like very robust, and it'll teach you some things, and I think it's pretty awesome, right? You leave that, and then you go off to your brigade, one of the 5 brigades, actually one of the 6, because we've got the whole National Guard conglomerate. And then you get to do some great stuff. So you'll do things specific to your MOS, but then you'll do some things that are outside of the MOS, and you get to use some of the newer equipment, and the responsibility that you have isn't about a bunch of people. Now it's about the mission, right? The mission's always important, but I mean, the soldiers are super, super important. Well, now I've got a group of folks that know how to take care of themselves, right? Grown folks business. Let's go out and prioritize this mission. And we're going to do that by remaining physically fit, going off and doing some crazy ass PT because we want to do it, not because we have to do it. You should never see a bunch of people sitting in their cars, but you do in core units. But, the SFAB, I mean, people are chomping at the bit to do PT. Anything and everything, man. It's amazing, right? And then from PT, you go off and you train. Who doesn't want that? And it's uninterrupted. It's unhindered. It's not the BS behind it. I won't say BS, but sitting around and waiting for somebody. No. If you're sitting around the SFAB waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, it's probably not the organization you want to be in or need to be in. They want people that see an open time and go, oh man, Kyle, we can go do this, man.
Yeah. And
let's get it on. Throw on your vest, throw out your, right? And we're going to mess around with this, set some waypoints. Hey, let's talk, right? Every PT, people are pulling out commo equipment and just doing, the Lord's work on it and just getting after it. I thought it was awesome. You won't see that because most people can't see past the fact that you're wearing a brown beret or that you were trying to be special forces or you were trying to be, forget all that. Forget all that. If you think that you have a choice between the two, go SFAB. Just do it. I mean, what are you going to lose? Honestly, Brian Ducote, Colonel, one each, battalion commander, when we first started up, They sent him back out into the Army, made the Corps Army a little bit better, and brought him right back in to be the brigade commander of 1st SFAB. And I hope, number one, he's listening, and number two, we can bring him onto the show so he can talk about all the great and wonderful things they're doing just in that individual organization. So they're regionally aligned to Southcom, so they get to do a lot of the Central America type stuff, and they work with special forces down there, and they work with the commandos down there, and if you just go to their Facebook page, you can see what all these different groups are doing. I think it's amazing, and you get to work in a small group, and you get to train, and you get to shoot, and all these things that Joe complains about when they're sitting on the back dock of a troop CP, like, man, I wish I could go to, man, this is it. If you're a younger soldier and you don't have the rank to do it yet, bust your ass, make rank, do all the right things. I said 3 things that'll make you successful in the military. Don't get fat, right? Do well on your whatever PT test that they decide they're going to do for this year, and don't do stupid shit. Those 3 things will get you far in the military, because it'll allow you to concentrate on the job, and just by natural attrition, people are going to fall to the wayside because they're either going to get fat, they're not going to do well on a PT test, or they're going to do stupid shit.
So we covered shoot and move, the communication portion of SFAB. What is the GT score requirement for SFAB? Is there one, or is it MOS based?
I think it was 110, and thanks for putting me on the spot. I think it was 110.
So still the same requirement for
SFAB, you still got to be
stuff.
You still got to be smart. There's always outliers.
Yeah,
right.
I just didn't know if the advisor had a GT requirement. Obviously, you can be. I don't even know the floor for a Cav Scout. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of
50 something.
It's small. Yeah.
I had 126. Yeah. My first retention NCO when I was a specialist was like going over my stuff because I was getting ready to. I was coming up on my time, and he said, he's like, all right, man, what's your MOS? And I was like, 19 Delta. He's like, all right, Cav Scout. What's your GT? What's your GT? No, he said, hey, what's your GT score? I said 126. He's like, man, you must be the smartest mug in this battalion. Man, that's amazing. What's your MOS? I was like, 19 Delta. Man, you must be the dumbest mug in this battalion. 19 Delta, what are you doing there? I don't know, spoon-chested. I wanted to be better. So, yeah, SFAB. You're going to learn some things. You're going to learn some things beyond your 5 and 25. You're going to learn some strategic things. You're going to learn some stuff that's critical to understand and know from a tactical and strategic level as you get older. You're going to learn that at a younger age. You're going to know the importance of why we do certain things, why MDMP is important, why op orders are important, why communication is important. You're going to learn all these different things that are going to make you relevant within the next unit that you go to. We want you to be a stand-up person that everybody goes to for either advice or training or whatever. Hey, how'd you guys do it in the SFAB? I know you guys did some 19th Delta, reconnaissance type stuff. What'd you guys do? What'd you guys do for security operations, right? Hey, what kind of comms equipment did you guys use, and do you think it's relevant to what we're using right now? How do we talk to all this stuff just starts to fall out, and people start to get energized, and then now all of a sudden you create a new group, a new tranche of folks that want to go. Your handwriting is like a doctor. No, so there's a lot more to it. We did our rotation to Afghanistan, and that thing probably looked completely different than what anybody thought it was going to, but I learned a lot from it. We lost a few folks, and we won't get into that, but I think it set the conditions for the rest of the SFABs that came in. They look at the successes and I say failures lightly. I'll say successes and obstacles from that rotation, and then just through that whole evolution of what the actual first SFAB looked like throughout those first 3 years. And I believe a lot of people learned from that, and it's helped the organization grow. and we can close this out soon. I just was wondering, are they getting rid of the SFAC itself? So they created the first, and then they went to second, which is at Bragg. You had third SFAB, which is at Hood or Cavazos. You had fourth is at Carson, fifth is at JBLM, and then they have the 54th, which is headquartered in Florida, but they have like, the Cav Squadron is in Florida, the infantry is in Indiana. I'm saying it wrong, but you understand. And then they had the SFAC, which was located in the FORCECOM headquarters building, talk directly to FORCECOM commander, and then, they go off to the COCOMs and do their thing. I heard a rumor that they were going away, the SFAC itself, and they were going to actually align to. That'd be interesting.
Well, I think what we ought to do now, because you gave us a bit of the history and what led to this point and all of that, is to get, if people are interested in this episode and like the history of it, maybe the next step is, like you said, let's get somebody who is either on active duty or just left that was, in SFAB, that can talk about what's going on, what the direction is, and those types of things at the right level. But
what I would challenge folks is that whoever's listening to this and wants to make a comment, I understand it's low-hanging fruit. It's easy to make fun of the SFAB. I get it. And I've been there, I've done that. My skin is thick. I've heard it all.
Well, it took us 8 years to even get to this point where we talked about it.
I know.
Because it was such a touchy subject.
Yeah, and so I would challenge the folks that listen to this, that whether agree or disagree with what I'm saying, if you have legitimate questions, ask them. And whether I can answer them or I can at somebody that's already in that can answer them, I would love to have, an educated conversation about whatever questions people have, because once you go down the rabbit hole of talking shit, then everybody loses it. And everything is now an emotional based reply or an answer. And then we start calling people names, and I don't know. It doesn't go anywhere. The SFAB is cool, whether it stays or goes. But as it stands, it exists. And as it stands, it's doing some great and wonderful things for cooperation within foreign security forces and our partner nations. So, anything to break bread and make nice with our neighbors. But I appreciate you letting me talk about it.
No, I appreciate you letting me talk up.
It brought back some old stuff. I got some cool pictures. I got pictures when I was like 100,000 pounds lighter. So, everybody looking at the camera, the beard actually makes me look fatter. I'm just saying. That my stomach. But no, it was good. So we'll try to bring on some other folks in here to talk about it. But until next time.
See ya.